I have an idea. Let's record a shitty intro. Just strum it.
Okay.
Oh shit. Oh, hello. Sorry, I just started it too early. Welcome to the Zach and Aakash show. I was literally just like,
Welcome.
don't fuck that up, and then I fucked it up. Hello. Welcome to the Zach and Aakash show. I did not realize
Good
that
morning.
I am not in frame. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this lovely Wednesday Wikipedia show, the Aakash version.
Gorgeous day outside
Yeah, so today,
so far.
the world is on fire. It's the apocalypse. So what do? You use the stoic mindset, right?
Wow,
So
beautiful transition.
if anyone's new to the Wikipedia show, what we do is I do Sunday, Akash does Wednesday, and each of us research a topic on Wikipedia, just high level things that we're interested about, and we go on the show and we talk about it. So I have some knowledge in Stoicism, but Akash has dived deep in, so we should have a cool conversation today.
That's right. I went balls deep into Stoicism for the past couple days.
Jesus
All right. Well,
Christ.
before we start with Stoicism, let's enjoy a nice coffee bean.
Hell yeah. You see, this feels like classic Zach and
Daily
Akash
bean.
show right here.
What do you mean?
I don't know, it just feels classic.
Classic. Delicious. If you guys are listening to us on one of the like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Google Podcasts, consider joining us on stream so you can witness me live eating the daily coffee bean.
Or you could rewatch it. We do film this show live for audience participation for like the couple of people who join us every day. It's just like, if we're gonna film this, why not do it live and have people ask us questions? So
Yeah, but the recordings stay up so you can check it out whenever if you want. If you want to watch us rather than listening to us, you can do that. Anyway,
So
without
Akash,
further ado,
what is Stoicism?
Stoicism. Well, Stoicism, many people think it's just philosophy, or people think it's just a mindset. But Stoicism is actually more a philosophy and a practice, a way of living. It's all about, um, let's put it this way, it's all about taking responsibility, living a virtuous life, and not letting your surroundings necessarily affect you, living your own virtuous life. The goal of Stoicism is to live as one with nature. And I mean, I wrote down exactly what that means. Hold up. So, living in accordance with nature is knowing, first of all, what the nature of this world is, knowing what the nature of yourself is, and then living according to that. Now, I would say that a lot of self-help going on right now is actually just derived from Stoicism, whether they know it or not. Because one of the things we've talked about a lot here is self-awareness, right? And how much that helps you. Stoicism is all about that. It's all about being introspective, finding out your own nature, and like I said, finding out the world's nature and figuring out exactly where you belong in the world. And in a way, Stoicism believes that everyone's equal. It's believes everyone is different. They're born different with like different genetics, but we are all equal in that we all have the ability to provide some sort of value into the world. And a lot of it is about finding exactly how you can provide value to the world and provide it. And therefore, when you provide value to the world by living your own virtuous life, you're where was it going with that? While you're living your own virtuous life, that's how you become stoic. I guess that's how you reach happiness or eudaimonia. And eudaimonia is the concept of, I guess it's the end goal in a lot of philosophy. However you reach happiness. In Stoicism, it's pretty much through living virtuously your best life, whatever personally suits you. That really surprised me about Stoicism. It's not really this hard philosophy. It gives you a few guiding principles and it lets you interpret it in your own way and follow it in your own way, which I thought was really cool.
Very cool. So it's like a could you describe it as like a tool belt philosophy that you can apply any way you want almost?
Yeah, you could say not anywhere you want. If you're a true Stoic, you apply it everywhere, whether you want to or not.
Gotcha.
Um, yep. So again, a lot of people, the modern definition of Stoic believe that Stoicism is about suppressing your inner emotions and staying indifferent to everything. But rather, Stoicism isn't, it's not really to go away from emotions. That's would actually not be Stoic at all. It's more to act in a rational and logical manner despite your emotions. It's about not necessarily running away from pain or fearing pain, but it's about accepting pain and living your life as you would anyway. And it's not about um, finding going towards excessive joy or happiness. It's enjoying happiness when you have it with the knowledge that everything, including any emotion, anything around you, is ephemeral, meaning nothing lasts forever. So I guess let's start with like a very brief history of it. Let me pull out my notebook. Zach has his legal pad. I have my five subject notebook right here. Um, so it started during the what you call the Hellenistic period in Greece. So that's around 300 BC to, and it ended around 140 AC. It was started by Zeno of Citium, which so the interesting part is all of the major philosophers you see who practice Stoicism all come from very different backgrounds. Now, Zeno was a very wealthy dude who came to Greece in a ship, and he had a bunch of purple dye, which at the time was really, really hard to get, and it was, I guess, a symbol of wealth. It showed that he was really rich because he had a bunch of purple dye. But in the shipwreck, he pretty much lost everything, and he was not wealthy anymore. He was no one. He was nothing. And then at this point, he went to this oracle, and she's like, now instead of covering yourself with wealth, which was this like purple dye, you must cover yourself with the blood of men or with the color of men before you. So she wanted him to paint himself red. He interpreted this as he had to learn from the past and learn from philosophers in the past. So he started learning about Socrates and his teachings. And then one day he was at a coffee shop,
Ooh.
and I think that's where he learned about cynicism. And he met this dude. I think I forgot that other dude's name, but he then started practicing cynicism, which isn't again the modern day version of cynical, but um, I didn't dive deep into cynicism at all. But that's where he got the law of following nature from,
Okay.
how you have to stay with nature. And anyway, he practiced cynicism, this guy, for like 20 years until he went away and then started Stoicism, where he would it was actually Zenoism in the beginning was him teaching about his philosophies at this porch. And later, Stoics, they didn't want to accredit everything to this one guy because they know that even though he's the founder of Stoicism, they recognize that he isn't perfect. No human is. So they actually named Stoicism after the porch he thought it on. The Stoicism literally means the porch.
Ah,
Yeah.
interesting. I
Yeah.
thought I thought it was like some fancy word. It's porch.
You know, dude,
It's
it's
just
literally
fucking
porch.
porch.
Yeah.
What the fuck? Okay.
um, So later, Diogenes, I didn't look much into him, but he pretty much took Stoicism from Greece and took it to Rome, which is where it flourished more under people like Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius. There was a lot more people in the line of Stoicism growing, but these guys are huge people. I guess the biggest people. And again, the interesting thing is Seneca. He was like he was what you would consider a polymath. Zach. He was a playwright,
Hell yeah.
investor, advisor to the emperor. He was a wealthy businessman. Um, but I guess through all of this, there was through business and stuff, he did have do some scam. There was a lot of sin. So his main contribution was he was, I guess, an imperfect Stoic, and he wrestled in his mind with a lot of the Stoic philosophies and however he was living life, and he went back and forth. So that gave people some good insight as to practical Stoicism. Um, you can read about his work at the Tao of Seneca, and then there was Epictetus, who was a slave who was set free by his owner because the owner recognized that he was smart. So, and then again, he studied Stoicism. He spread a lot of his work. He was one of like the huge guys to spread Stoicism. And then there was Marcus Aurelius, which is the name you
Mm-hmm.
hear of most really when
Yeah.
you listen to talk about Stoicism. Um, I guess he was one of like the last people in the line before Stoicism saw its decline. But he was the emperor, and I guess he was always groomed to be an emperor from a young age. But him personally, he thought he had to live a virtuous life before he can lead others, which is why he really took to Stoicism. And it was really cool how even as literally the emperor of Rome, he pretty much put that aside, and every day he practices self-restraint. He practices the four virtues, which is you know what? Now's a good time to talk about four virtues because that's pretty much like the history of Stoicism. And after Marcus Aurelius, it pretty much saw a big decline, and that's when Christianity grew. Before Christianity, Stoicism was a thing. It was a fad. It was a vibe of the people back then. And I guess again, it's becoming the vibe of the people now. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot more people going into Stoicism, surprisingly, right now.
It's like veganism back then.
But before I dive into virtues of a Stoic, any questions?
So, to be virtuous, does that mean you satisfy each of the four virtues in order to be virtuous, or is virtuous something else?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Stoicism is based around these four virtues, though they're like the core philosophies of it. But you will notice these virtues are not hard or set in stone at all. They're very much left to your own interpretation.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, Stoicism. So, Marcus Aurelius is right before. No, it's like it's during Christianity, right? His
What?
time. So, what's the time frame right now? So,
Let's say my this is because
he was like during after Christianity, after AD, I guess, if we're looking at that. Um,
yeah. Let me pull up the quick timeline. So Marcus Aurelius was again from I guess his lifespan was from like 125 to like 175 AD ish.
okay, so we're looking
Um,
at like a 400 year, because it started like 300 BC, right? Is that what you said?
yeah, yeah, like
Okay.
negative 350.
Okay, so around
A good way to look
four,
at it.
we're looking around 400 years
Yeah,
of
almost 500.
Stoicism, almost 500 up until
Hmm.
Marcus Aurelius, which is where we're talking about the four virtues. Um,
And that's when like the growth of Christianity started. So Stoicism saw a huge decline in that.
gotcha. That's very interesting. So let's talk about like the classical um, philosophers. So like Plato's people. When was that time period in terms of Stoicism? Was that like ancient,
That was
ancient?
pre,
I know that's pre-Stoicism, like
yeah,
Aristotle and friends.
timeline. Let me look up the timeline. So Plato was right before he was from 427 to 347 BC.
Okay.
Wait, no. Oh, wait, goes the other.
Yeah,
Wait,
go. You
he was
count
that old?
backwards. Yeah.
No, no. It's weird. I didn't realize Plato lived to that age.
How old is Plato?
So it was 427 to 347 BC. So it was a 27 plus 50. He lived almost like 80.
It's good life. Good lifespan.
Yeah,
I like
back
the
in the day for sure.
Okay.
And he learned from Socrates, who's even before.
Okay, cool. So we're in the Roman Empire right now. Christianity's just starting because it's like he said it was like 1100 or something, 110 Marcus Aurelius.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So we won't see a
140-ish.
big boom in Christianity for a little bit. Okay, cool. So now I know where we are on like the history. Cool.
Yep.
Cool. All right, continue with the
Yeah.
four virtues.
It's like the right at the beginning of the boom of Christianity.
Interesting. So like Stoicism was like MySpace of
Yeah, it was
religions.
MySpace before Facebook too.
Yeah, so it was good, but Christianity came in. Cool. All
But
right.
again, it lasted for 500 years, which is a long time. But I mean,
Yeah.
Christianity lasted way longer. But it looks like Stoicism, it's winning in the second half, as Gary Vee would say. It's coming back. So it'll
Okay.
be interesting to see where it goes.
All right, let's
So
continue.
Corey says, I think virtue is a state of character. As you shape your own as you like. I am virtuous, but if people do not agree due to what you think is intrinsically valuable, you might have wise. Yeah, no, that's along the lines of it, Corey. So let me go through the four virtues, right?
Hmm.
The first virtue, which kind of is an umbrella virtue, is courage. You need
Courage.
courage to practice all the virtues. Cowardice is vice. Pretty much, you should be a man that's one able to stand up for yourself and able to stand up for the right virtues. Because if you cannot stand up for yourself, you will not be able to practice all your virtues in any situation. Um, Next, we have justice, which is to treat everyone equally and with fairness. And as you can already see, all of this, it's like justice, you can interpret that however you want, right? Whatever you think the way right is. So the famous line was, I think Marcus Aurelius said this was doing the right, the rest doesn't matter. Where doing the right is the most important thing. And then the next one is temperance, which is interesting, where it's balance, nothing in excess, including the virtues, that is. So that talks about justice and courage. Too much courage, that's just like you're going to be reckless. You're just
Yeah.
going to be doing dumb shit all the time. The same way justice, temperance really tells you to look at your own values. And if you think something is justice, but only you think it, and you're going overboard with that, like Corey mentioned, that could be a vice. So temperance really encourages you to take everything into account, watch other people to learn from them, and to keep everything in balance. So you're not overdoing anything. And
So
again, that's what Stoicism's a lot about too.
like a diet.
It's Yeah, it's kind of like a diet, right? It's about moderation, everything in
Okay.
moderation.
Cool.
And then the last one is wisdom, which is education, pursuit of knowledge. Uh, it's just values learning, values the knowledge around you. And pretty much all these virtues, as you can see, are somewhat interrelated. You need wisdom to practice justice. You need courage to pretty much exhibit all the virtues no matter when, and temperance checks all of them to make sure you're not going overboard with anything. But you also notice these aren't extremely strict per se. These are just guidelines and principles you can choose to live by. Um, there's an exact way of enforcing it per se.
Very cool.
No, it goes based on philosophy that no one person is right and
Hmm.
to take everything into account, which I really believe in.
Yeah. Cool.
Oh, one more thing with justice, it's treating literally everyone fairly and equally, including slaves. They um they saw slaves as equal. They didn't care about rank or wealth or anything. They said it existed, but when it actually comes to social relationships, they do not matter. You need to treat everyone fairly and equally. So Stoicism, in many ways, was way ahead of its time in treating everyone equally. Uh, it's all about treating everyone with kindness and compassion.
Cool. So everyone,
Corey's,
even the enemies.
even the enemies. To live stoic, do you have to have others validate your virtues? Yeah, Corey, I was actually confused about that too. I was trying to figure that out. Um, in a way, you do because you're constantly learning and watching others, right? It's not about being self-centered. It's not about saying what I know is right and it's only right. No, it's about constantly observing and constantly um, contemplating and learning. So I would say it encourages you to learn from others, become better, but not necessarily, I don't know if it necessarily has you validated by others. I guess that other philosopher could look at you and say their opinion of whether you're living a virtuous life or not, or rather another stoic, but they might not be right no matter what they say.
Not everyone's right. That's important. I use that to this day. I used to look up to adults and say, "Oh, they're older, so they must have it figured out." But then I've seen many examples of how that's not true at all. So
Yeah, dude.
I take everyone's
I was like,
opinion with a grain of salt now.
that was my biggest revelation going into adulthood, figuring out that you don't just have everything figured out as soon as you become
Hmm.
like 18 or 21 or something.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, how about some examples of how you've used Stoicism in your life? Now that you know the four virtues, can you list some examples? One, I guess one
Well,
for each.
one for each.
Yeah,
I'd say um definitely I value courage. It's something I try to practice for sure. And also, wisdom, pursuit of knowledge.
that's
Always
this right
try
now.
to, yeah, that's us right now. And also more of these virtues have also been boiled down into Stoic practices. About I'll get to more of that later. And actually, I think this might be better once we get to the Stoic practices to discuss what we've been doing and what we can relate to. So we'll do that in a bit.
Okay.
Yeah. See if chat's got anything.
Nothing yet.
Oh, all right. See what else I want to talk about.
What about suffering?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that a big piece of
What about?
Stoicism?
What about it?
Like, wasn't Seneca, someone, a Stoic, was like banished and forced to commit suicide? I think that was Seneca. Um,
I remember banish. I don't know if forced to commit suicide. I didn't look that deep in.
because I
Um,
remember suffering being a big part of a lot of the Stoic stuff.
well, it's about knowing that suffering is inevitable
Yeah,
and to be okay with it. Okay with the a lot of the practice suffering. What I'm saying, let me. And honestly, they almost say that suffering is not following by your nature or by your virtues. It's a true suffering. Everything else. Here's their view on it, right? No matter what happens to you around you, you only suffer if you pretty much just let something happen to you. But if you instead take a step back, look at whatever's happening, and say you will still act in a virtuous manner, then you don't suffer,
okay.
right? You can either suffer. They say suffering is almost a choice.
Yeah, I remember, I forgot who said it, but I'm gonna butcher the quote. I'll just put in my own words.
Hmm.
But someone was like, so you look at something that you think will be a moment of suffering, and then once you go through it, it turns out that most of the suffering was actually just in your head. Like you made like the situation in your head worse than it actually is.
I believe that was Seneca. It's one of the practices was he puts himself in poverty. Like he sets time apart in like a year or what, like a week and a month or something like that, where he like literally gets rid of all his possessions, puts himself in poverty or some other form of suffering, and then stares it in the face and pretty much asks, "Is this what I used to dread?"
Mm-hmm.
Mm, yeah. So before I get to the practices, another few other big themes in Stoicism. Stoicism, again, it's not just a philosophy; it's extremely action-based,
Yeah.
and it's literally all about action. You don't care about what people say; you watch their actions. That's another big part of it, and it's about distinguishing between what you have control over and what you don't have control over. And it's pretty much don't worry about anything you don't have control over, but always know that you have control over your own mind and your own actions, and you have the ability to exercise that control always. And in that manner, the action of suicide is actually okay as far as the stoicism goes, as
Damn.
long as you're in extreme pain or you have a really bad disease. Suicide is okay. Most times, suicide is not okay because it's seen as you're not fulfilling your righteous duty, and you're taking the easy way out is how it's seen. But if you are under extreme pain or disease, suicide is actually okay.
So like
And
examples where it's okay is like under Stoicism would be pulling the plug. Uh, what's it called when you're that they do it in like Europe where you're under so much pain, so you take a medication that just kills you. Um,
yeah, pretty much.
I forgot what that's
Um,
called.
yep. Yeah, if you like pain with no one, like pretty much if you're like stage 4 cancer or something and every
Hmm.
day is just pain, extreme pain, then you're okay to pull the plug.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Dark.
But yeah, that's pretty much it. Just no matter what emotions you face, or you don't choose to escape the emotions, you identify it, live it, and then you proceed in a logical manner. A rational, logical action is a key and answer to everything.
So you don't lose your shit when like something crazy happens in the world.
Yeah, man.
You're just like
Like
I'm
like
hinting.
if there's a say there's like this global let's call it a global pandemic out of nowhere, and say you have to be in your homes for months at a time to escape this global pandemic, you pretty much find the best in the situation
Hmm.
and live that way rather than bitching all day.
Yeah. So I've been thinking about this um, around the time of spring break. I was thinking about how Stoicism and this whole situation right now are perfectly paired together. When it's like, what's in your control is, like you give yourself a sense of false control when you watch the numbers every day and you like formulate certain opinions around what's going on when in reality like that doesn't do anything. If anything, you should just, I don't know, do some push-ups or something that'll make your life better.
Yeah, because you literally do not have any control. The only control you have is your ability to stay at home
Hmm.
and your ability to do what you want to do with your time at home, given the resources you are given at home.
Hmm.
Um, this also brings me to another perspective, another part of Stoicism, which I didn't know was Stoicism, but this is one thing I follow, is to pretty much always look for the positive and negative situations. It's called turning the negative upside down or something. It's a practice they do where say you're dealing with a bunch of people you don't want to be dealing with. They're very rude. They don't, say it's a group project, right? They're not doing any work. It's just you doing it. It's just you carrying. You can either view that as a huge obstacle, give up, bitch about it, or you can be like, hey, look, this is an opportunity for me to practice understanding and patience. View everything as an opportunity for growth. which is one thing I really stand by.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And when when shit hits the fan, like there's some adversity. Usually, I look at it and I'm like, okay, well, that's well, what does that mean or something? I think it was Mark Manson. He was like, what if it was a gift or something like that? So you could find
That's where I
meaning.
got it from.
Yeah, so you can
Yeah.
find meaning in shitty situations. So, you right now you look out your window and you see the world on fire. You could you could watch it burn, or you could like do something else that's going to be beneficial.
And dude, another thing I noticed, speaking about Mark Manson got a lot of his philosophies from Buddhism.
Hmm.
While reading about a lot of Stoicism, I realized, damn, this is very, very close to Buddhism.
Yeah.
And then I looked into it, and they evolved completely separately, but they're very similar. The only thing is Buddhism is a bit more hardcore with what you can do and what you can't. Um, but again, the main one, like one of the main similarities in Stoicism, you become a sage if you are extremely virtuous in your daily life. That's like nirvana in Buddhism. And they're
Hmm.
both highly around not letting your emotions or anything affect you too much. It's more, you know, letting it pass as it is. Everything comes to an end type of mentality.
Yeah. The way I view like the philosophies, certain religions, is it's a way of coming to terms that you're an animal that can think for itself, and how to exist
Mm.
knowing that. See, if you know that you're an animal, you know that other animals die. So it's like, shit. Everything I'm going to do is to distract me from the inevitable that I'm going to die. So that's what the philosophies are for, is for preparing to die. That's my
Wow.
philosophy on philosophy.
Oh, that's dark. So everything you do is just in preparation for your death.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm.
Also,
I've never thought about it like that.
also, Dan, I saw your comment. This is my Yukon blanket. It's fuzzy. It was cold when we started, so I put this on. It's very comfortable.
Fishes and assisted suicide.
Yeah.
Pulling the plug. All right, let's get into some Stoic practices. These are practices you can do if you would like to become a Stoic or if you'd like to try it out. So the first is practicing misfortune. I briefly talked about it, how Seneca, it says time to suffer. One could be to live in poverty. Um, One interesting thing about this is remember a bit back I was talking about dopamine fast.
Yep.
It's interesting. That's kind of a way of practicing suffering. It gives you new light as to how it's not so bad. And also, I guess it could have a chemical reaction in you, kind of resetting you. So doing hard work becomes easier. I wonder if they saw any benefits from like that from practicing suffering. But yeah, I don't know. How do you think you'd go about practicing suffering in this modern day? Do you just go live in the streets for a week or?
Well, you know, about back to bring it to the pandemic. It's like you want to practice suffering, just exist right now in this pandemic. Um, there's like tons of shit that I should be. I don't want to say should, but like I'm supposed to be doing. Um, that was like gonna come my way, but now I can't. So that's like a form of suffering. It's like I'm
Mm,
suffering. What is it? FOMO, fear of missing
fear of
out.
missing out?
Yeah, so I'm suffering massive FOMO. So that's why I think that's why I think it's a good thing for a society to suffer just a little bit. So it's like, what if we take away your freedom? What if we're all prisoners for a little bit? Um,
Well, another thing, John Sonmez talks about this is to like hard work or putting even a hard workout is pretty much putting yourself through suffering.
yeah,
Another thing he says is any form of suffering you could think of, put yourself through it because it's better you put yourself through it through your own terms so you learn what the suffering is so you have control. So when it inevitably happens to you through an external source, you know how to act. It's pretty much premature suffering so that it's like developing antibodies right? It's
Hmm.
like a vaccine,
Yeah.
pretty much. You suffer and you realize how to handle it in a controlled environment. Therefore, when it actually happens, you now know how to deal with it, so you don't actually suffer.
Yeah. So one form of suffering I would do um, earlier in the fall, right when it started to get cold, was I would go out and I would run in like 10-degree weather. Um, it'd be safe. Usually my roommate knew where I was going, but it'd be safe. And then I'd come back and then keep doing that like every day for like a couple months. And so now when I started walking outside in like legit, like it's like cold, you're waiting in line, I'm like, this isn't anything. Like I'm fine. Like people are shivering. I'm like, this is like doable. Come on, guys. So that's like one form of suffering I put myself through. Um,
I guess the modern day self-improvement go to cold showers is a form of doing that.
I guess. Yeah, I
I
guess.
tried that for a bit, and I'm like, I'm not doing this. I enjoy my warm
But
showers
if
too
you, if
much.
you do like the cold run, it's like you kill two birds with one stone. So one, you're suffering from the cold. Two, you're suffering from like physical activity. You're like, I want to die. And then walking's not that
Um,
bad. Um, yeah, that's one form of suffering.
Corey, dopamine fast is, yeah, like you said, you pretty much oh, one way to do this is to just go outside. You're not allowed to bring anything except for water, maybe a notebook and a pencil with you. And you just spend a whole day outside. You wake up, go outside. You're not allowed to interact with any people. Um, no food, nothing that gives you even minimal pleasure. Nothing. So you just go outside. You can meditate if you want. You can write in your book or something, and you come back, go to sleep, and then the next day you evaluate what it is. Or maybe you could do a multiple day dopamine fast too. But it's supposed to work as a hard reset because right now we're all used to so much stimulus coming from everywhere. Um, and that stimulus seems easier to get and it's more engaging than, say, something like reading a book or doing some work to better yourself. So you'd go through this dopamine fast. So your dopamine receptors pretty much get reset. And now you're able to do more hard work with more ease, given you don't dive right back into all the stimulus as soon as you do the dopamine fast.
No fab.
No fat.
Hmm.
Remember when we made everyone say I in chat?
And no one said I except you and me.
No one said I.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay. What's up?
more practices. This is another one I already talked about. See every difficulty with the positive light.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Um,
I practice.
that's a huge one. Uh, Remember how small you are and everything is. Everything is ephemeral. Remember
Hmm.
that in the long run, you don't matter.
Yes.
Nothing,
Yes.
you know.
It's very
It,
important.
the it also brings into perspective more the micro level that you feeling anger day to day, someone does something uh, stupid. Don't let that bother you. It's in the long run, it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean anything. The long run, you don't matter. You're such a small part in such a huge history of nature and the world. And again, everything is fleeting. Everything goes away at one point or another. Don't take anything for granted.
Yeah. So one way I practice small thing is, well, I eventually came to terms with that it's like, okay, you're such a small part of like history and humanity that's gonna happen. Um, so when certain things do happen, like a lot of people are like, oh, this would never happen to me. This would never happen to me. But nature doesn't care. It'll it'll like it'll fuck you up. Um, no one's invincible. So it's better to live that way because you'd be like, okay, well, if I could get hit by a meteor at any time, unlikely, but I could get hit by a meteor, I better be doing stuff. I better be doing the things I said I was going to do. Otherwise, I'll get hit by the meteor and won't get to do them.
Yeah.
That's a good way
And
to.
all right, what's your perspective on this, right? A lot of people hear this nothing doesn't matter, nothing matters type philosophy, and they turn towards nihilism.
Okay,
That's a pattern I've noticed.
So at first, if someone were to tell you nothing matters, you might think they're crazy, but you're not thinking hard enough, I think, if you automatically, because I was once one of those people where someone would be like nihilism. I'm like, if life doesn't matter, just kill yourself. But that's like that is the ignorant thing to say. Um, Literally, life does not give a shit what happens to you. Like if you see two tigers like killing each other, you're not going to think anything of it. You're just going to see, or like a hawk eats a squirrel, you're just going to think, oh, a hawk ate a squirrel. It's nature. Like how are we different? We're literally animals. Like yeah, we built these giant beehives that we can all systematically work in, but we're still animals. We still could kill each other. You could still get killed by the pandemic. Obviously, that's true. But because there's no meaning, that gives you the control to produce your own meaning in things.
Oh, thank you, dude.
So that's how it works.
That exact thing. That's what I've been coining as a positive nihilism. I've talked to my friend a lot about this,
hmm
and I'm like, dude, you got to get in the way of positive nihilism.
Yeah.
Where like my whole philosophy was because nothing has meaning, you get the opportunity to give it meaning.
Yeah, it doesn't mean I'm like a cynicist. I'm like, oh, fuck everybody, life sucks. It's like, no, life is pretty fucking cool because I have complete control over what I have control over. And that's a
Yeah.
very empowering.
Something can be cool while not mattering at the same time.
Yeah. It's like just fucking don't take life seriously because you're gonna die pretty soon. Um,
Yeah.
you could die tomorrow.
It's everything is just to put you into perspective and give you reason to live a more virtuous life, which leads us to the next thing, which is um, memento mori, which is meditate on your mortality. That's the common Stoic practice where they contemplate their own death, um, how life is after you die, what death is, how you'll face your death, and this pretty much motivates you to live a virtuous life because if you're going to die and death is right around the corner, why would you want to die doing nothing? You want to die living a virtuous life.
You ever like visualize your own funeral? See who's gonna be vibing.
Oh hell yeah.
uh,
A lot of different things tell you to visualize your own funeral. That's a common thing. It's not death though. It's a weird thing. They always talk about the funeral.
yep. So I think Gary Vee mentions it. Fuck, I keep quoting Gary Vee, but he was like, "Yeah, I want to like know who's at my funeral. That's the ultimate scorekeeper. Is how many people show up. So it's like how many people respected you and like how many lives did you touch. That's how many people will show up to your funeral. So yeah,
Q.
that's like the
Corey asks,
KPI of
what if
life.
KPI of life?
Yeah, let's do Corey's
What if
questions.
what if nature has an end goal for us and we just can't understand it? Very possible.
It is possible.
There could be like fifth dimensional creatures whose playgrounds we're living in. It could just be an experiment and that could be our purpose.
There's this
That
video,
answer.
it's called Kyrgyzstan. They do a bunch of animations. You've probably seen a video or two,
Oh, Kutsugat?
or that's what it's called, Kyrgyzstan.
Or Scott or
Yeah,
there,
there's a
Kurtzcott in a
video.
nutshell.
Yeah, there's a video called The Egg. You go watch
Oh
that, Corey.
dude.
Watch that. It's
Dude,
interesting.
watch the egg. Um it's a yeah, watch it. I don't want to spoil it.
It's
It's a
pretty
really
cool.
good one.
Yeah, I'd watch that, Corey. That'll answer your question.
Yeah, it's called I think it's like Kurzgesagt. I believe that's how you but anyone listening, go check that channel out. It is fascinating. And they talk about history, right? There's one video talking about like the beginning of time all the way to the end. And that really puts things into perspective and has you feeling real small. So that watching that video could be a stoic exercise.
Our objectives of
Um,
watching TV or browsing the web mean nothing to a bird or your dog. My dog
yeah.
watches TV. I'm just kidding, Corey, but yeah, I mean, yeah, pretty much. Like, animals don't know what money is. Money's made up. Doesn't mean anything. Like literally, like if you look at how bizarre like working and going to school is, so it's like you go to school, you do all this shit to get money, and then you go work, and then you stay at home and you do these 8 hour cycles of collecting money and just rinsing and repeating and buying food, and it's like, what the fuck is that?
And this whole time,
It's
you're
very
doing it
bizarre.
for this paradise land called retirement. That's the goal. You live your life as a slave so that you can live your life not as a slave when you become a slave to your body and your physical features deteriorating. It's kind of sad.
That's why like we were talking about North Korea and we're like, yeah, North Korea's, pretty locked down. I'm like, we do the same shit, just different. It's just like we're lied
Yeah,
to.
again,
We're
we
still
have the
lied to.
illusion of
We
choice and
still lie
freedom.
to ourselves. Yeah. I guess that's another
Um,
Zach premise. People lie to themselves.
mhm.
I lie to myself. You lie to yourself. Another premise is we're all hypocrites. So there's two types of people. There's hypocrites and then there's liars. So I'd rather just be a hypocrite than a hypocrite and a liar because we're all hypocrites.
What do you mean by that?
Well, a hypocrite, you say something and you do the opposite.
Hmm.
But if I were to say, "Oh, I'm not a hypocrite," I know that that's being a hypocrite in nature and that's lying.
Oh, God,
So I'd
you're
rather
lying.
just be a hypocrite. I'd rather just be, a shitty person rather than a shitty person and a liar. You know, at least I'm fucking
Zachism,
trying to be.
become virtuous, you need to escape hypocrisy.
Don't
That's
escape it. Just
Zachism.
no. It's just like literally just accept.
Just
Stop
accept
fucking
it.
lying to
Accept it.
yourselves. Yeah, that's how I live my
Uh,
life.
all right. Next principle. They love seeing the bigger picture. I didn't look too much into this principle, but it's pretty much taking a look at everything from bird's eye view, not always looking at it in the micro, but looking at the macro.
Yeah,
Um,
that's some data science right there.
again, huh?
It's like fucking data science.
Data science. So looking at the small data points, looking at the, and then differentiate between. I talked about this. What's within your control, what isn't. Uh, Stoics meditate a lot on this. Again, Stoicism, it's very introspective. Meditation is huge, looking inwards into yourself and figuring out your nature is huge. And part of that is figuring out exactly what you have control over
Okay.
and what you don't. And don't worry about anything you don't have control over. Only um, worry about your right to do anything that is in your control, your actions, and make sure they're virtuous actions. And then the last one is um, journaling.
Oh.
They journal quite a bit.
Oh God, I gotta
Marcus
do that.
Aurelius, at the end of the day, pretty much journaled everything in his day, and it's about being completely honest, writing it as it is, not lying to yourself, writing it exactly how it went down, not judging it, but just writing it. So when he went to sleep, it would put him in this introspective mood once he writes everything in the day. But not only that, you're supposed to also write what you expect of in the next day, how you want to structure your next day. Um, so yeah, a lot of this meditation, journaling, all of this very much sounds to me like this modern self-improvement culture. It's all seems to be derived from Stoicism, whether they know it or not.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the practices. So if you want to be a Stoic, practice those. Um, and in the end, all of this is about living life in a way where, in a moral way. Don't be an asshole to others. That's a huge thing. Um, Pretty much don't worry about anything. Don't bullshit anything. Just stay true to yourself. Stay true to those around you. Stay true to your place within this world. Look at everything from above. Look at the big picture and the small picture and come to a conclusion. Be rational and logical. Don't let your emotions affect you. Humans are animals with logical thinking. That's all we are. So let's use the logical thinking gifted to us and just be chill. That's the defining principle of Stoicism. Be chill.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. Just, the Stoicism, it doesn't have to be complicated. It's like it's not like
Oh,
we don't have to. I know like all the self improvement world, it looks so complicated to get started, but the things you listed, it's not very difficult to implement.
you internally, a lot of it's also about listening to the right voice in your head. You internally always know what the right thing to do is. You know you should be doing your work instead of playing a shit ton of video games. You know, you should stand up for that guy getting bullied or something. Inside your head, you know the right action to take. It's about pretty much um, adjusting that voice. Yeah, it's about taking experiences and adjusting that inner voice to make sure, tuning it. That's the word I was looking for. Tuning it to make sure it's right and listening to it as much as you can. And also contemplating facts that the fact that you're going to die and not everything is permanent and being okay with it, coming in terms to your death,
Yeah.
coming to terms with your death.
Question everything.
Yep.
Don't be afraid to call bullshit. Well, that was a much better self improvement than Monday.
Yeah, I guess it kind of turned out to be that because of the topic itself.
Very cool.
Yeah,
Damn,
man.
dude, I like Wikipedia.
It's fun.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, guys.
learning.
For those of you who don't know, if you weren't on yesterday, when I started looking into this, it was very dry and I was very bored.
Dude, you're like, I fucking
And
hate
I was
this.
like, why the hell am I doing this? And then I'm like, you know what? We got the show tomorrow. It's the first Wikipedia show. I'm gonna try to look into it and at least have something. And then finally, like sticking to it, I actually got really interested in it by the end of it. I'm like, damn, this shit is cool. I was just mostly interested in finding all the parallels it had with Buddhism and also all with like self improvement space and everything. So cool
You
shit.
are you starting to see
Stoicism.
the interconnectedness of all things?
Oh hell yeah, dude.
That's like a whole new philosophy. Well, not whole new, but it's like, yeah.
I'm a I'm gonna start spending most of my day in my porch now, thinking.
You're stoic.
Right. I'm stoic now, dude.
No, the porch is the stoic. Going to the
Dude, I'm gonna
stoic.
become a porch. That's the key. That's the nirvana for stoicism. Becoming a porch.
But I think that this is like this like whole thing. This like the Wikipedia show is very powerful because you know in school you learn or you like you read your stuff and you just like do it on the exam. But now there's people watching and you have to teach them as soon as you like read it. So this is actually like a very powerful tool to use in terms of learning. Like how often do you like try to teach a crowd like stuff you just read on Wikipedia or like a YouTube video?
Yeah,
So
that's another thing
it's
that
a very
keeps you
powerful
from not
tool.
just memorizing it or cramming it, but actually understanding it, so
Yeah,
you can talk about it.
exactly.
And also, it allows us to pick topics we're somewhat interested in, so
Hmm.
we're not learning about shit we don't care about.
We should do that though. An episode where we pick a topic that's shit we don't care about and try to find knowledge and truth in it.
Ooh, maybe something we're against.
That's a
That could be a
stoic
stoic
practice.
exercise. Um, we could read about Nazis and try to derive meaning from it. It'd be a screwed up episode, but I wonder it would produce interesting results. Corey says, "What if we realize which voices to listen to? I think all the thoughts in my head are mine, but they all have different
Yep.
intent, and thus some thoughts aren't virtuous. Every day I bug my roommates with what I read on Wiki. Yeah, well, not all voices in your head are yours.
Most of them aren't
Most
yours.
voices are, there's some put into place by your friends, by your parents, as Gary
Teachers.
Vee says,
Teachers.
teachers. Yeah,
Um,
but
they'll
yeah, the
never go
voices
away.
that are yours, they're highly influenced because I mean, you are a reflection of your surroundings, right? And your unique experiences. But even within that, you know that voice that's telling you to do the right thing. You always know the right course of action. Sometimes you do have to debate it a bit, but most times you know the right course of action. And it's having the courage to listen to that voice.
To act. You see that cutie, and you're like, all right, time to go say hi.
I saw you over there.
All right. Any last words,
Oh,
Akash, before we end this? Yeah, we could probably just end it soon.
yeah. I mean, last words wise, just this interests you, look into Stoicism. There's a blog I found called The Daily Stoic, which was really cool. They have YouTube videos too. Go check them out. That's where I got some of the information from. But other than that, if you enjoyed this segment of learning something new through Wikipedia, then come back. If you're listening to this, come join us live on YouTube at the Zach and Akash Show. And if you're watching and you can't watch some other day, check us out up here, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts, and reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you on our Instagram at the Zach and Akash Show.
Yep. And
Connect.
tomorrow we're going to talk about, what is it? How to make your own experience.
Yeah, tomorrow is going to be our little business segment. It's about creating your own experience. And, if you don't get a job or an internship, what can you do? How can you, instead of wasting your time, what else can you do?
That's a
And
good
honestly,
title.
that's
That's a good title.
it's what, instead of
That's
wasting your
so
time,
relevant. No, no.
what else can you do?
Like, what can you do if your internship is gone and you have no internship? That's like really.
Oh yeah,
That's
yeah.
very
And
relevant.
right now it's a good time to exercise it. Quarantine, a lot of people are just binging Netflix,
Yep.
playing a bunch of video games, which again,
You still
I
can.
still could say it's good in moderation, everything in moderation. But don't go for that excessive joy. That'll burn you out too much. Don't binge it. Enjoy a few episodes, but also try to start with just as little as half an hour a day. Anyway, more on that tomorrow.
Yep.
But otherwise, thank you for watching/listening. This has been fun. Maybe we'll see you tomorrow and the day after. Not the day after, no, and the day after that, but not the day after that. But then Sunday, we will see you again.
All right,
Peace.
everybody. Stay beastly.